Stories Pulse brings you real-life stories filled with emotions, challenges, and inspiration, capturing the true heartbeat of life.
Rachel slammed her half-empty cocktail glass on the bar with a sigh. Can you believe the nerve of that woman? She fumed to her best friend Tina. She treats me like her personal servant. Oh, come on, Rach. It can't be that bad, Tina replied, taking a sip of her cosmopolitan. Margaret may be demanding, but she's giving you a comfortable life in that mansion. Most people would envy you. I know, but I feel trapped, Tina. Ever since Adam died, she's only gotten worse. Rachel motioned to the bartender for another drink. She controls every cent of the family fortune. I'm at her mercy. Tina squeezed her hand sympathetically. Just hang in there, babe. You don't have many options. Rachel knew her friend had a point. At 43, with no job experience and no skills, staying with Margaret, as demeaning as it was, seemed better than the financial ruin that loomed if she left. She tossed back her drink and stood up unsteadily. I should go before Her Majesty sends out a search party. Thanks for listening. As Rachel headed down the street, heels clicking on the sidewalk, a shadowed figure suddenly blocked her path, nearly causing her to stumble. Excuse me, miss. A gruff voice came from the darkness, extending her wallet toward her. I think you dropped this. Oh, thank you, Rachel mumbled, looking up to see tattoos covering his muscular arms and an intense look in his eyes that made her shiver. Snatching her wallet, she hurried away, glancing back only once to see the man watching her retreat. The moment Rachel stepped through the front door of the mansion, Margaret's stern voice greeted her. And where have you been? Rachel bit back a sharp reply. I told you I was meeting Tina. I'm back, just like I said. It's past 10, Margaret snapped. Anything could have happened to you, running around the city at this hour. Rachel forced herself to remain calm. I'm sorry, Margaret, she replied, feigning meekness. It won't happen again. It better not, Margaret sniffed. I expect you here when I need you. Is that so much to ask, after all I've done for you? No, Margaret, Rachel muttered under her breath as the older woman tottered away. As the reality of her life crashed over her, Rachel sank down onto the staircase, burying her face in her hands. Every day was the same. Guilt trips, nagging, and endless servitude. How much longer could she keep living this way? But then, as she sat there, an idea took shape. A dangerous, wicked idea that brought a gleam to her eye. She climbed the stairs to her room, heart racing as she began working through the finer points of her scheme. For the first time in 3 years, Rachel went to bed with a smile on her face. You're going to what? Tina nearly choked on her latte the next morning as Rachel shared her plan. I'm going to hire a caregiver for Margaret, Rachel said, eyes sparkling with excitement. Not just any caregiver. Remember that guy who returned my wallet last night? I'm going to find him and convince him to take the job. Tina looked at her in disbelief. Are you insane? That guy looked like he could be dangerous, and you want him around Margaret? Exactly. This isn't about finding Margaret a good caregiver, Rachel smirked. It's about giving her a taste of her own medicine. Tina frowned. Rach, this sounds risky. What if this guy hurts her or steals from her? You could end up in serious trouble. Rachel waved a dismissive hand. He'll sign a contract, an NDA. Margaret will think I thoroughly vetted him. She'll never see it coming. Tina sighed, realizing she couldn't talk Rachel out of it. Just be careful, okay? Don't let this blow up in your face. Rachel grinned. I'll be careful. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a bad boy caregiver to go hire. Rachel arranged a meeting at a dimly lit diner, where she found the tattooed man sitting across from her with a guarded, curious expression. Thanks for meeting me, she said. Do you remember me? You returned my wallet last night. Yeah, I remember, he replied, his gaze steady. But something tells me this isn't just a thank you coffee. You're perceptive, Rachel said, smiling slightly. I need a caregiver for my mother-in-law, someone to keep her preoccupied and out of my hair. and I think you'd be perfect for the job." The man raised an eyebrow. "Look, no offense, but I don't have experience as a caregiver. I don't exactly fit the part." "On the contrary," Rachel replied smoothly, "I think you're exactly what she needs. Between you and me, my mother-in-law is difficult, and I'd like her to experience a little frustration for once." Understanding dawned in his eyes. "So this is more of a make her life miserable job than actual caregiving?" Rachel huffed a laugh. "Something like that. I'd pay you well off the books. Just keep her occupied, press her buttons, and make her life a bit chaotic." The man considered her for a moment, a grin slowly spreading across his face. "You're either crazy or my dream client. All right, I'm in. Name's Vincent." Rachel's heart raced with excitement as she handed him a thick envelope. "Welcome aboard, Vincent." When Rachel introduced Vincent to Margaret, the older woman's eyes narrowed in clear disapproval. "This is your idea of a qualified caregiver?" "Appearances can be deceiving, Margaret," Rachel said, barely concealing her glee. "Just give him a chance." Margaret continued to look doubtful, but eventually relented. Over the next several weeks, Rachel delighted in eavesdropping on Vincent's interactions with Margaret through hidden cameras she'd set up. Just as she'd hoped, Vincent subtly needled her, forgetting her requests and occasionally mixing up her medication. But to Rachel's shock, Margaret soon began to warm up to him. One afternoon, Rachel glanced at the camera and saw Margaret dressed to the nines, makeup and all, as Vincent spun her around the living room in a waltz. "Oh, Vincent," Margaret laughed, "no one's twirled me like this since Albert passed." Rachel stared in disbelief as Vincent murmured something to Margaret, who gazed up at him with adoration. What was going on? Vincent was supposed to be her worst nightmare, not Prince Charming. Fuming, Rachel decided she needed answers. "What's the meaning of this?" Rachel burst into the living room, eyes blazing. Margaret turned, raising an eyebrow. "I might ask you the same. Why are you interrupting our private moment?" "Private moment?" Rachel spluttered. "He's your caregiver, not your companion. Have you lost your mind?" "Enough, Rachel." Margaret's voice was firm. "Vincent has brought joy back into my life. Feelings I haven't felt in years." Rachel felt her stomach drop. "But he's just using you, Margaret. You're being foolish." Margaret shook her head with a knowing smile. "Did you think I didn't see through your little scheme, Rachel? I knew what you were up to the moment you brought Vincent here. But you were right about one thing. I needed someone like him." Margaret took Vincent's hand, a look of triumph in her eyes. "We're getting married, Rachel. I'm removing you from my will. You're free to go." Rachel gaped at them, stunned. This couldn't be happening. "You can't do this, Margaret. I'm family. I'm all you have left of Adam." Margaret's gaze hardened. "You stopped being family the moment you tried to manipulate me. Now please leave." With that, Margaret turned away, leaning into Vincent as Rachel stood, frozen in disbelief. She'd lost everything in her reckless quest for revenge. 1 year later, Rachel was folding shirts at a department store register. The once glamorous life she'd lived nothing but a distant memory. "Rachel," a familiar voice called out. She looked up to see Tina, impeccably dressed, hurrying over. "Oh, honey, I'm so sorry," Tina said, giving Rachel a sympathetic look. "After everything with Margaret, I just didn't know what to say." "It's fine, Tina," Rachel replied flatly. "I needed time to process." Tina hesitated. "I don't know if you've heard, but Margaret and Vincent got married. Big fancy wedding in the Hamptons." Rachel clenched the shirt in her hands, barely able to keep her composure. "Of course they did. Why wouldn't they?" "I'm so sorry, Rach," Tina said gently. "But you're still young, still beautiful. There's plenty of time to start over." Rachel forced a smile. "Maybe you're right. Maybe I can still find something better." As Tina said goodbye, Rachel turned back to the register, eyes blazing with newfound determination. She wasn't going to spend her life bitter and defeated. She would rise from this no matter what it took. Pulling out her phone, she began a search for job listings, her heart racing as she stumbled upon one for a high-end poker club. A smirk formed on her lips. It was time to play her cards right. Margaret and Vincent would be seeing her again someday soon, but on her terms.